Hello, everyone. This is Daktilo1984, and I'm Enes Özkan. He is my guest, Rick Petree. He's an investment banker, very experienced investment banker from USA, New York, and he's following Turkey and Turkish markets for many years. After recent developments in Turkish markets, I want to talk with him, and then I want to ask some questions to Rick. And this is my first question. It's very simple. Also complicated. How do recent developments resonate from USA, New York? What do you think about Turkish politics nowadays and Turkish economy also?
First of all, a little bit to my surprise, many Americans are paying attention, are following the events in Turkey. My own reaction after the arrest of Ekrem Bey and his colleagues and the reporters and others, that I was very encouraged by the very prompt, immediate response from the Turkish people and by the persistence of the opposition, of the resistance. I see at Sarathane they're meeting now in one more hour and 20 minutes again. 300,000 people were there yesterday. We'll see what happens today. But my impression is that the Turkish people have risen to the challenge posed by the administration's actions, and that it's important because it's intergenerational. I see people of all ages, although, of course, the youth seem to be in the vanguard. And I think it's also important that there have been meaningful, large demonstrations in places like Çorum, Konya, other cities where traditionally there has been a lot of AKP strength. So my impression is that this is a very broad-based and kind of instantaneous reaction of the people, both in defense of democracy, which is fundamental not only in Turkey but elsewhere. We have our own challenge at the moment in the US. Expressions of opposition relate not only to the challenge, the arrest of İmamoğlu, but also to broader social and economic questions. This has become, it seems to me, a moment in which the Turkish people are expressing the deep hardship and pain which has been felt economically for the last 2 or 3 years, as well as very serious concerns about the direction of the country in terms of employment opportunities for the youth and many other issues. So I see this now going in a direction which is a more broad-based challenge to the administration than it would have been if it was only a question of the arrest of Ekrem Bey and demands for his release. I think something more fundamental seems to be going on. I'm outside Turkey, of course, but I do, as you said in your introduction, follow events very closely. I'm in minute to minute and hour to hour conversations with many people in Turkey. So some of what I'm relating here reflects what I'm being told by people inside of Turkey.
Yeah, we will see what happens. And also, Turkish markets have experienced similar political problems before. You already know it. Do you think this period is different in terms of both international markets and the international political atmosphere?
Well, let's talk about markets first. I was in Turkey and doing business in Turkey in the fiscal crisis of 2001, 2002. So I've been through several of these cycles. Whether this one is different in terms of foreign investment and foreign investors' perception, I don't know. I think the fundamental fact is that Turkey is and will always be a potentially attractive investment destination. Many people, Europeans, Chinese, even some Americans, want to make long-term investments in Turkey. Here I'm speaking about foreign direct investment, FDI, not portfolio investment or hot money investing in the lira because of the carry trade, so-called. But on the subject of long-term investment, there clearly is a desire or an interest in investing in Turkey because of some fundamental facts, including its geographic position and its affiliation with the EU and the opportunity that affords Chinese and other investors to use Turkey as a manufacturing base with access to both regional markets throughout the Middle East and North Africa, but also, and importantly, Europe. That desire or that interest in Turkey has repeatedly been frustrated. And we come to these moments of crisis where, hopes for a normalized Turkish situation economically have been disappointed. And I think we're at another of those points now. It's ironic and tragic that just in the last 6 months or so, perceptions had started to change among foreign investors, and they were noting that inflation was falling, that the lira seemed to have stabilized. There were no political crises, and people were saying to themselves, and some of them asking me, is it now time again to look at Turkey? And as a matter of fact, I am involved in several discussions intermediating between some foreign investors and Turkish parties and opportunities in Turkey. In fact, there will be some meetings next week in Istanbul with people from Europe and important Turkish business groups that I helped to organize. The plans for those were set in motion before the arrest of İmamoğlu, etc. But it's overtures of that kind, the beginnings of that kind of interest, that I fear may now be people may back away from doing things that they might otherwise have done. My expectation, therefore, is that the outlook for Turkish economy, at any rate, putting aside the domestic political implications of what's going on, but my expectation is that foreign investment will again stop. It's hard to say stop because it hadn't really started. We've had negligible, very small levels of foreign investment, foreign direct investment in Turkey for many years now. But I think that hopes for or prospects for the resumption of meaningful levels of FDI are now going to be disappointing. That will mean continued weakness of the lira, and that in turn means probably a resumption of inflation, which has been very, very damaging for Turkish people for a long time now. I don't think that the central bank, Mehmet Şimşek, have the resources to continue to defend the lira at the levels that we've seen in the last 3 days, something like 16 billion US spent in 3 days. They have reserves of, I think, about 60 or 70 billion US, so they've spent close to 20% of that in the last 3 days. And it's a futile attempt, in my view. I don't think that market operations will be successful in defending the lira. So I expect the lira to weaken, inflation to rise, foreign direct investment not to come, and Turkey will remain trapped in economic limbo, where the economy is perking along. It's not exactly collapsing, but it's not growing. And without growth, people's living standards will not rise, employment opportunities for young people will not appear, and the situation will continue to be very painful for Turkey, much to my regret.
Yeah, we calculate that they spent 30 billions US dollars, and maybe they just want to keep the Turkish lira level, but we will see what happens again. And you said potentially, this is the keyword about Turkey. I think
Yeah.
in every analysis, the developments and problems we observed also serious outflow of foreign capital. And you said that so you talk about foreign direct investment also. Maybe what we think about will short-term capital flows towards Turkey decrease in the future?
I think they will decrease, but for me, the short-term currency action is really not what's fundamental or what's important. Turkey has for a long time needed very substantial foreign direct investment. Turkey is kind of trapped in I would say, lower middle income bracket in terms of the kinds of economic activity that's going on. It's a assembly point and small manufacturing point for other people. I'm involved with two different Chinese companies, major battery manufacturers, who are going to create factories, one in Istanbul, one in Bursa, for assembly batteries to be shipped to Europe, again, using the EU accession agreement. But all of the technology, all of the hardware is not of Chinese manufacture. And I think that is, broadly the case in many other industries, with the exception of the defense industry, in which Turkey has made some very notable strides in recent years. And that is a reason for hope that there are some high-tech domestic manufacturing industries. I see also some activity in robotics and a few other fields. So my hope and my efforts have been to try to help Turkey move from this lower middle income assembling of other people's technology and hardware into domestic origination and more high value added forms of activity. All of that needs foreign direct investment. It's going to be a much slower process to break out of that lower middle income bracket without foreign direct investment.
Yeah, it's very important for Turkish economy and people's welfare in the long run. But how can I say too many political crises in maybe every year happen in Turkey. In addition to this, I would also like to ask you to answer the following. It is rumored that some rumors about that Finance Minister Şimşek is also not happy with what is happening and has conveyed to Erdogan that the economic program being implemented will be damaged. Do you agree with this? The economic program being implemented will be damaged, or what kind of a political environment should be created for foreign investors so that this political crisis does not maybe hinder capital flows to Turkey?
Well, first of all, I will say in Turkish my answer to your first question, which is tabii ki, kesinlikle. I don't know if it's true that Mehmet Bey has been speaking in that way with Tayyip Bey, but if he has been, it's totally understandable and natural. It's indisputably the fact that Şimşek's program for the last 2 or 3 years, which has been, as I said, somewhat successful in beginning to restore foreign investment, if not confidence, then interest or exploratory interest, that all of that, I think, has now been flushed down the toilet, as we would say in the US. And I can imagine that Şimşek is deeply dismayed and worried. He's a smart man. It seemed that he was being somewhat successful in redirecting economic policies, which, to my view, and I think in the view of most economists and investors around the world, had been very wrongheaded and dumb, not very smart. But I think Şimşek now must be quite worried about the direction in which things are likely to head. Because of the fiscal situation, he has very little room to move. He has very few tools at his disposal now. And as I say, my outlook, for the immediate future, at least for the next year or so, is not a very optimistic one.
Although my previous question is almost just a product of curiosity, because now the markets for short-term investment in Turkey are mostly driven by domestic investors, not foreigners.
Exactly.
Although this is reflected as something positive by the government, but as an economist, I attach great importance to the fact that a country of Turkey's scale is a country where foreign investors trust and can make a long-term investment, as you said. Do you think Turkey is too far away from the interest of foreign investors?
Yes, at the moment, Turkey is now quite far away, and what it has placed itself, or Tayyip has placed the country even farther away. Some ground had been gained in terms of foreign interest, but now I fear that most of that has been lost. It's not only about sort of the stability of or the reliability of Şimşek's economic program. It's more fundamentally about law and order, the reliability of the justice system, the independence of the judiciary. Foreign investors look for legal regimes in which contracts are upheld, in which disputes are handled in the courts in an impartial and even-handed way, and it scares and worries foreign investors. Speaking not only about Turkey but about many other places where there is evidence that the judicial system is operating along political rather than juridical lines. And I think it's been the case for now too long that people have serious misgivings about the reliability of the Turkish legal system as a means of defending their investments. When we talk about foreign direct investment, we're talking about long-term, steel in the ground somewhere, factories, big plants employing lots of people. These are long-term investments, and people need to be able to plan those while looking into the future and feeling secure about those investments and the protection of those investments over a long period of time. The periodic eruptions of political instability, and more than that, the clear evidence that the judiciary has been co-opted by the regime, make it very difficult for people to, gain that sense of security about their investment.
Yeah, yeah, and I generally maybe always talk about these topics.
Yeah,
Turkey has facing a problem with its current account deficit for a long time.
yeah,
Domestic savings are not a level to provide the growth required for sustainable development of the country.
sure.
Therefore, it needs long-term foreign investments, namely foreign direct investment
Yes,
(FDIs). But on the other hand, also Turkey is still one of the Europe's major economic partners, and it looks like it will be an important part of the new European security architecture that is expected to be formed after Trump's elections. You will
yeah.
see very closely. How do you think we should evaluate these international developments in Turkey's favor, both in terms of recent political events and the economic turmoil?
I think it's fair to say that Tayyip, on the geopolitical, geostrategic level, has strengthened Turkey's position. I'm thinking about Syria, I'm thinking about Ukraine, and I think that statements like the one he made about Crimea and Turkey refusing to accept any Russian long-term annexation of Crimea, and I think the somewhat helpful role that he has played in the transition in Damascus have strengthened what is obviously a key objective of his, which is to reassert Turkish significance, importance in certainly regional geopolitics. So, on the one hand, I think he has made some achievements there, but I think what is happening now and his action against Ekrem and all that that has unleashed, I think that he may have shot himself in the foot by creating domestic conditions which will undercut Turkey's ability to project the geostrategic influence that I think he was aiming for. This this episode will show again that Turkey has some serious problems at home and needs to pay maximum attention to its own affairs before it worries about others.
Thank you for your answers. It's your answers so clear for us. But I have a last question. The last but not least, you have been following Turkey for a long time. Are you an optimistic about the future of the Turkish economy? If you are optimistic, we would appreciate it
Any
if you
optimism.
tells us your reasons, because I think we all need this.
I have been active in business in Turkey since about 2001, 2002. And I have been consistently optimistic about Turkey's prospects and opportunity since then, based on some fundamentals having to do with, in general, a highly qualified workforce, more technically skilled than in a lot of other markets, the proportion of youth and the opportunity that that gives for the growth of the economy. Certainly, the famous bridge between Europe and Asia, which has always been there, is a factor. All of these things have always made me feel that Turkey has a tremendous opportunity and future ahead of it if it would only seize that opportunity and stop getting in its own way. We've said already that these crises erupt unfortunate frequency, and every time the Turkish boat starts to get some momentum and move more quickly through the water, something happens, it hits something, and then it slows down or stops. And we're at a moment where I think the opportunity is now further away than it was. It will recover. I have a great confidence in the resilience of the Turkish people. They've already shouldered a lot in the last 2 years, but the Turkish business community, it has always seemed to me, is in a way at its best in a crisis. People are nimble, people are opportunistic, people, easily abandon things that they had been doing traditionally and move to new things. It's a very quick, smart bunch of business leaders, and despite brain drain, which has been a very big problem and continues to be, with undercutting the story about a young technocratic population, there still is a substantial group of people who would support economic growth, and I hope that that can continue. The poor state and the deteriorating state of the education system is a real concern to me for Turkey's long term, and that needs to be rectified.
All of us are very unhappy our education system, and it's like a foreign direct investment. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a long-term investment
yeah.
for the people. I ask all of my questions. Rick, thanks a lot to your participation. We are also very like-minded peoples. persons. And I also generally talk about foreign direct investment. We need long-term investment, direct investment, not indirect investment. Indirect investment is very short-term, especially for Turkey. And now we are here, and we will see what happens for next days. Thank you very much again, and see you later.
Teşekkürler.